Welcome to the Scaleup Valley podcast, where we bring the best of the best to help you scale your business from 1 million to 1 trillion. Today's guest has been in touch with me for a very long time, and it is a great pleasure to finally have you on the show. His name is Miguel Arroja, the Regional Sales Manager at Salesforce. Miguel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mike. I'm delighted to be here with you on the Scaleup Valley podcast. By a quick way of introduction, just allow me to share a personal story. Let me tell you about my grandfather, Mario. Now, he helped raise me when I was young. We lived in the neighborhood of Benfica, 15 minutes away from the city center in Lisbon. He was a family man. He was a salesman. He owned a very small retail store where he sold cameras. Now, this was at the time people used cameras to actually take pictures, not the phone, right?
Exactly.
And during the summer,
difficult to imagine.
Yeah, exactly. As kids, we all spend way too much time, on our summer holidays. My parents were working; they were busy, and I spent some time watching him work, doing some work in his small retail store. There's a day in which a lady enters the store barging in. This lady, we're going to call her Mrs. Janet, okay? She enters the store and she's frustrated, she's angry, and she says, Mr. Mario, I've had people try to sell me cameras today, left, right, and center because of functionality X, Y, and Z, and it's not working. They're not giving me what I want. So I need your help. I was recommended to come here. You're the person in the neighborhood that is helping out other people. I need your help. And my grandfather, with his great way of understanding people, he sat her down, he invited the lady to a cup of tea. He wanted to know more. He made questions. What brings you to wanting to have a camera today? What's the occasion coming up? Oh, is it a wedding? All right. And tell me more about the wedding. Oh, my daughter is getting married. I have 2 daughters. It's the last one getting married. And on the first time, when my first daughter got married, we did not take the perfect picture at sunset because you only had a couple of minutes and the camera took too long to set up. And I realized my father, now, obviously at the time I was 9 years old, I could not realize it, but today I do. He was accessing new levels of information to position the right type of camera. And when he concludes the sale and Mrs. Janet is happy and leaves the store, I look up to him and I say, Grandpa, why spend so much time with a lady that was just looking for a camera? And my grandpa looks at me, 9 years old. He's probably realizing that his grandson is a lot dumber than he should be. And he looks at me and taps me in the shoulder and he says, that lady wasn't looking for a camera, Miguel. That lady was looking to take the perfect picture to remember her daughter's wedding for the rest of her life.
Wow.
I was only 9 years old. I did not understand it at the time. But what this shows me today and what I share with my sales teams today when I share this story with them is, if it's important for the customer, it needs to be important for us. In fact, according to Harvard Business School, in a study they've published in Harvard Business Review, the most important trait that B2B sales customers are looking for from salespeople is to be listened to their needs. And I think this is really, really important.
I love it. And definitely this question about the benefits versus the features, and even more than the benefits, really adapting the benefits to what the customer is talking about. And sometimes there is something very simple, which is just to repeat what the customer is telling us and checking if we are understanding what the customer is trying to tell to us. I think that sometimes even the client will correct us and help us out. Yes, you are right, in a very positive way, but I would add another layer. I would say also this, and that's amazing advice in terms of good communication and really putting ourselves in the shoes of the customer. So kind of thinking that we are speaking different languages and we need to ensure that we are getting what they are saying is a good way to start.
And I love how you put that. I got to add to that is so fascinating when you understand that importance of repeating back to the customer what they said, because most people actually listen with the intent to respond, not to the intent to understand.
Exactly.
And what you just shared there reminds me of a framework that we try to use, which is the LVA framework, which is listen, validate, and advise. There's no advice or validation unless you first started with really listening to what is being said. So that repetition, sometimes simply using the same words, if you put a hint of a question in the end, customer is going to share more with you. So that's really, really relevant.
That's definitely a great point, and it helps in any relationship, right? We will be discussing a lot about leadership here, but even doing the same with our teams, just repeating, let me see if I'm getting what you are telling me. So this is kind of what you are saying that my performance looks like. And in the way that you are saying that I can help you out more is by doing this, this, and this. Is this right, what I'm saying? So it's incredible the power of communication, and especially in scale ups and large organizations like Salesforce. Cross-functional communication, ensuring that everyone is on the same page, is extremely challenging. So if we would step back a bit and just repeat a little bit more to ensure that we understand what is being said and what is not being said sometimes.
Good point.
That's a great point. But definitely you shared an inspiration, a little bit of why you do what you do today. And it would be great to get a little bit of your background and how did you join Salesforce and how has been your
Absolutely. So I've been at Salesforce for 5 years. Currently, I serve as a regional sales manager for the Iberia operating units. I specialize mainly on startups and companies that are looking to grow. Also covered some verticals that was particularly important to understand the needs of our customers in more detail. And obviously, you know, when you verticalize, it means that you want to speak the language of that customer and truly understand what moves them. And some of those pains, like you were speaking about earlier today. Before that, I did startups. You know, I worked in companies where, you know, growing really, really fast at the time. One of them was Uniplaces, another of them was Web Summit. Obviously, you know, that gave me a unique opportunity to understand the importance of scalability and multiplication and mobilizing people around the clarity of goals. Because, you know, if you want to grow fast, obviously that's something that is particularly important. And in terms of my background, one thing that I will share, though, that has opened my horizons quite a lot is the importance of networking, right? I've lived in Madrid, I've lived in Milan, obviously, you know, spent quite some time in Portugal. I do like to travel quite a lot. It's really important for me to continuously look for the opportunity of networking, which again is an example of how this conversation, this podcast has emerged today. Most people go about it in a way, do I have to be promoting myself all the time? Do I this, do I that? I just look at it, what genuine connections can you build with like-minded people that potentially might have interests around your level of interest, and that you simply, you know, it piques your curiosity to listen to the content that they publish. So I've listened to some of your podcasts, and I think it just triggers me the interest of, I'd love to have a conversation. Let me reach out because I really love to have a conversation. We speak to similar type of companies and we help them in same stage of maturity, although we help them from very different perspectives, right? You with the coaching and the scale-up methodology, myself, you know, with the CRM and empowering them to know more about their customer and to sell to them better. But in the end, it's very interesting to think about the ideal customer profile and the affinity and the proximity that there is there.
And I think that's also an evolution of what you are saying, is that we are getting better and better on relationship building on social media. And it's incredible how much we know about people nowadays that maybe we never had a call yet. And we've been commenting and seeing the posts, and we kind of understand what the person is thinking about. And you can keep the relationship almost by 2 years and speak again and immediately say, look, I know that you think about this, this, and this in this way. You have been also following me that I think in that way. And we can almost have a conversation about that without having kind of meetings or coffees together. But it seems that we have been meeting for a long time. It's happened with us, for instance.
Exactly.
We didn't have a call for a while, but we have been in touch for a very long time, and we have been interacting with each other on our thoughts on LinkedIn. And it's curious how synchronous communication is also happening on LinkedIn and other social media platforms.
100%. I could not agree more.
and again, it really connects with your story and with the skills that we need nowadays about listening and reading what people are talking about, and also that we also need to listen and understand with the intent to serve, right? And also to feel a common purpose. So of course we have been following the comments of each other because there is something that we connect with. So the kind of topics, the purpose, the values of each other, there is something that sparks us something to keep following each other and to keep the conversation going on. And then you get into the point that you want to keep serving each other, and it might not mean with a product, with a service, but if anytime it comes, it will be very easy because we know what each other does, the way we think, the way we communicate. We might be to a referral to each other, and we will do it without any second intentions, which I think it's really amazing. But before moving into the next points, and I need to be quick because I see that we can speak for 2 or 3 hours here, which is if you would have the opportunity to have a coffee with that younger self. Let's not go into the story of your grandfather, but at the time of the beginning of that you joined Salesforce, what advice would you offer to your younger self?
So I'd even go a little back. I'd go into as far as the time I started selling. So the advice to my younger self, and if we would sit down for a cup of coffee, the first thing I would say, drop coffee, drink more tea. I drank way too much coffee when I was young. That doesn't count. I'll call that advice number 0, but I drank way too much coffee, and that definitely didn't serve me. So today I'm more of a tea guy. So hopefully that has been helping me out just a little more. I'd say advice number 1, no salesperson has ever listened their way out of a sale, right? You might talk your way out of a sale. So I'd say with this, I simply mean a lesson that I learned from a sales coach that I've worked with for a couple of years now. And she told me this: it's so much more important in sales to be interested than interesting. And when I was young, I was foolish. I had just come out of university, and all I wanted to know is I researched the heck out of your company. I know more about your profile. I've called your contact center and seen how long they keep me waiting, and if they're nice or not nice, and this and that. just ask smart questions and shut up. You know, if I could go back, that's really the number 1 thing I would say, right?
Love it.
Number 2, people really don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And this was particularly I did a summer internship when I was in Spain, in University Carlos III. We did an internship, and we did a very short term, 4 weeks, a consulting project into Real Madrid. And I walk in there and I'm like, Jesus. At the time, Mourinho was coaching there, Ronaldo was playing there, like all the star players. And I start noticing there's some departments where people are like this all the time, and people are like looking down, and they don't seem to be very productive people. And I'm young, and I'm like, Jesus, you work at Real Madrid. What else could you want more? There's one time we're at lunch, and they would help us out to the canteen, and I would ask around like, what's going on? They leave all the money in the football pitch. They put all the money in the players because they just expect you to work here almost like if it was pro bono. So they had huge problems with retention, right? Turnover, because people would go there 1 or 2 years and then they immediately go somewhere else because then they have the stamp that they've worked there. Now, what this told me at the time is I was looking to understand how much people knew about their operation, because it's obviously a very successful football club. And from a management perspective, you know, the way they handle all their operations, ticket sales, sponsors, etc., was very, very smart. But people would not care how much they actually knew until they knew that there was actually a superior entity caring for them and actually providing for them with, you know, fair compensation, all that model. So at the time, there was an eye opener for me. You know, sometimes the grass might look greener on the other side, might not exactly be the case. So, you know, do your research. Right. And the third one to keep this brief, the third one I have to say, be the most humble person and the hardest working person in the room. When I was young, again, probably quite foolish of me, I wanted to, show up to the meetings like, bang on, sales power attitude, Miguel to the power, I would say those kind of, stupid things about myself and try to look good. Now, I just try to ask smart questions. And the smarter the questions, the more I learn. And it's gone from a perspective of being right to getting it right, which is very different. If I need to be right, I will defend my perspective and I won't change my mind and I won't ask smart questions. I'll just be very good at argumenting, which again, my mother is a lawyer, so you can see my background. I can defend my point and live and breathe by that. But I've changed and I've tried to sort of evolve in a more sophisticated approach of let's try to get it right. What are the smart questions we need to be doing? What question are we not doing now that we should be asking ourselves now?
And that's a great point there. It's really another layer of maturity and of leadership, which is sometimes even leading by letting the customer lead, which is a special way of leadership, right? Is letting the other person lead, but at the end of the day, we are also leading by letting the other person lead. And that's why I love to say that there is an art in leading and there is an art in being led. And we need both. That's not one or another. So love it. And
good point.
I also we love the topic that we have discussed it several times here in the podcast, but I know that you have fresher insights, which is really this transition from a art performer where you have learned all of this selling and doing yourself the job, and now it's the time for you to transition to leading a team, and the skills that you need in terms of being a top performer and being a top performer at leading teams are completely different. How has been this transition to you?
It's a great question, Mike. So I'll tell you this. As an individual contributor, and I've been an individual contributor for most of my professional career, right? It's only been 12 to 24 months that I'm leading teams. So obviously that doesn't compensate for all the, let's say, the 9 years that I've been doing sales as an IC, as an individual contributor. Now I'll tell you what the biggest transition was. Number one, as an individual contributor, it was all about the quantity and quality about my work, delivering the number, getting to that target on time, and involving the key stakeholders that I need to bring along with me. That's maybe a pre-sales, a solution engineer. That's maybe having a great relationship with your SDR. So, you maximize the pipeline that might be coming in. That's maybe working with your BDR so that you maximize outbound. That's, obviously many things, reporting up the chain into your manager to help him look good on his forecast with accuracy and with precision. And when you think, that what makes a successful IC, it's mainly two things: quantity and quality of the volume of the work that you're doing, right? Now, when you think of going into people management, and I think I learned this the hard way, right? I learned this the hard way, and I'll share a short story in a second. But I learned this the hard way because when I joined, the 3 best words of caution that I got from my mentors was, number one, if you're expecting to make people in your team work like you, you're going to be in for one hell of a frustration.
Love it.
So don't try to make people look like you. They got to be the best they can be. And it's your job to get them from where they are to where they can be, right?
Yeah.
Not to make them as you are or to your image. That doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Now, the second is, if you catch people when they're doing it wrong, you don't create a culture of good news fast, bad news faster. And this is one of the key pillars in my team. If there's nothing else, it's good news fast, bad news faster. So we can act upon changes that emerge on a deal, and we can strategize on ways to try to make it turn around and for ways for us to rescue the situation. So if I go like, I've been a very successful individual contributor for 8 years. You do what I say and you do what I do. That only gets people away from you. You need to create a trusted atmosphere. And this is great advice I got, which is, someone comes to me with a question in my team, it's always the same. Before I offer you my perspective, Mike, how would you go about it? So you instantly change the focus of, it's not me leading the conversation, it's me leading the questions, and you're in the driver's seat to have your own safe space to create options to explore. And if in the end I want to compliment, your perspective is very interesting in this and this, let me complement with this. How does that inform our approach? If this doesn't work, what else can we try? So that was particularly important in the transition from IC to people manager. And the third one, I think that the third one is so important. You always take a little bit more of the blame if the results of the team are not there, and you take a little bit less of the credit. I'll give you an example. My team overperformed a couple of quarters in a row. For me, it was all about making the team feel great. We're doing this great and this great. You catch them when they're doing good, right? It's like that famous TED talk. You catch them when they're doing right. Now, when we did wrong, I said, want to raise the hands. We're doing this and this wrong. I'm the first one that is the main responsible because I'm responsible for the team and our performance. Collectively, we got to come together and fix this. And I highlighted 2 or 3 things that I wanted us to fix. And then I opened the floor for the team so that we could discuss other things that we could try to fix. And it's really, really important. Don't put the blame on other people. You're the person in charge of the team. It's your own responsibility. Own up that responsibility and really be brave. And look, if you gotta, take heat from the management team, it's happened to me in the past. You gotta own up to it and live up to the fact that you fell short of expectations. So you gotta go back to the drawing board and redesign your approach.
That's a good point. I always like a quote of it's common sense, but it's not common practice.
I love that from Stephen Covey. Yeah, common sense is not always common practice. I love that.
It always follows me because so you have just shared the simple principles of great leadership, and I would say that almost everyone that is really committed to know more about leadership knows this, but what separates great leaders from average leaders is definitely the ones who are committed to act on what they know instead of just saying what they know. So, and definitely what you have shared, some of your stories, it's really amazing, great points. And what did you say are the main muscles that you need to keep developing and that are serving you the most leading your teams?
So yeah, according to a study that Gallup did on salespeople and their expectations from management, most things fall around one main need, which is coaching. So that's a key pillar for me, right? I need to spend X amount of time on a monthly basis coaching the team because that's how you make them better. And in coaching, again, simple. Ask questions, shut up and listen. It's I try to keep this as a simple approach. I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, giving people the formulas and stuff. When people actually feel the smartest and they actually feel most accountable when they got to their own solution. So my job is only really to try to make questions and then get out of my way. Get out of my way. So I think coaching, that vitamin C, you got to load up the team on that vitamin C, vitamin coaching. And then it's 2 main things, right? Recruiting and onboarding. And now, obviously, I'm privileged being in the company where I am, the unique opportunity that I have in terms of, access to support in terms of recruiting, onboarding, and obviously those processes are very, very well set up. So I have a unique opportunity and privilege there. What I would say to complement that, don't rely on someone else to do your recruiting per se. Mm-hmm. Go on LinkedIn, actively look for top talents, reach out to people. Make ways to open a conversation. I like the fact that you just highlighted a story that you have from a customer and you published it on LinkedIn. Great way of going about customer success. Can we jump on the phone and speak for 10 minutes? You might not be looking to be hired. You might not be proactively looking for something, but I'm looking to hire people in my team, and that's the type of profile I'm looking for. And 5 people are going to say no. 3 people are going to say maybe, but I want to have those 2 conversations. It's like everything. You want to get that conversion of those 2 conversations that might lead up to something. And the onboarding is so important. The onboarding is really clearly setting up expectations. And where I think is the real differentiator is in the shadowing. Are you giving sufficient opportunity for people to shadow their peers? Don't do it because I tell you to do it as a manager. Do it because you see top performer people in the team doing it and you feel, interesting. There's John and Jane there who do this on all their calls. If I don't know better, I might as well just copy. So it's really important. Recruiting, onboarding, and the coaching.
The coaching. That's definitely three very important skills. And I wanted to say something, but I forget to be real. That's also a good way. And but definitely, what I wanted really to say is that a lot of the metrics that apply to sales apply to external customers apply to internal customers. So it's really important, like we see what are the customers that we are serving even better, that are super happy to upsell and to want to involve themselves more with us. So what are the people in our teams that we are able to promote? What are the customers that are leaving and why they are leaving? What are the talent or the team members that are not happy and that are leaving? What are the team members that are not performing, and we might need to have a special kind of program to try to recover them and get into a better performance. If not, they might get demoted. As the same happens to customers. So I think that finally we got into a moment, and it's really exciting with all this stuff about the Great Resignation and so on, that we are really looking to the two assets of the company with the same level of importance: the people, the talent, and the customer. So both are the customer today. And what you just shared, recruitment, onboarding, and coaching, we do for both, and that's really, 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 really powerful. So, and I reminded myself what I wanted to say. Good point. And let's go into a great important skill also to comment, which is the team of the compensation. So there are so many lessons learned here, so many mistakes made. I know that you have some interesting insights and thought-provoking insights here. So what's your take in terms of compensation?
So my take into compensation, right? First of all, incentives guide behavior. And sometimes I work with customers who told us, you guys obviously sell technology, you sell that wonderful platform, X, Y, and Z. Can you share with us a little bit of what other companies that you might be speaking to might be doing regarding compensation? And I see things very quickly, two things that I see in the market that are clearly not working, and that separates companies that we work with that are working quite well and others that are not. First, clearly understanding incentives guide behavior, right? You want your top performing salespeople to be accessing a level of income that the rest don't access, simply because they contribute to the most important thing at a company that is growing, which is influencing revenue, right? Every department in the company is relevant. In sales, you need to influence revenue. And that's really the core component of the role. So understanding that incentives guide behavior at a really materially relevant way, and not being afraid to compensate your top performers the way they should. First, to ensure they're properly motivated and they stay. Second, to ensure that they understand, because that top performance must have been at the expense of, sacrifice, whether that comes, professional sacrifice, studying, learning more about their craft, improving. Some of them might buy programs. So I have companies now who are allocating a learning and development budget, an education budget, and they're allocating this on a quarterly basis. So their salespeople can study, a program. Maybe that's a coaching program. Maybe that's like a sales academy. Maybe that's like a storytelling academy, but it makes them better on their craft. And another thing that is particularly important, incentives that are aligned. Aligned incentives, I simply mean you're creating a biz dev department. Don't just compensate them for the business that is closed, because they got to generate pipeline first. And if the sales cycle is too long, they might not see the result immediately, which motivates them. So find the right combination. Maybe that's quality and quantity of opportunities. Maybe that's pipeline that has gone to negotiation stage, because they don't control what happens after that stage.
Right.
If they generated up to that amount, I see really smart companies going with this approach now, which motivates people. And then you bring quality pipeline to your account executives. Those account executives act on that pipeline fast, because they know that agility is critical and time to response is critical. As much, according to Forrester research, as much as 70% of business might be won by the vendor who replies first and is the most agile to respond. So that's where I see incentives being geared up the right way when companies do it right. So when they do it wrong, they treat sales just like any other department, like, service, or they're taking your others. And then you don't get salespeople, you get service people. And it's not the right way to go about it. And hopefully this, some of the founders, some of the Scaleup podcast listeners that might be hearing this, hopefully you won't be afraid of compensating the people according to the level that they perform and they produce.
Yeah, and for the scale-ups out there, there's a great article by Jason Lemkin that talks about an interesting proof of the maturity or the scalability of your revenue model or your revenue machine, which is if your top performers don't have a supercar at the door of the office and of their homes, something is not working on your revenue model. I think it's fully connected with what you just shared, Miguel. So it's a little bit weird, but we should be super happy that our top performers are winning top dollars. It means that our companies are having huge success and our people as well, and they deserve, right? So
spot on.
And even more, we want more of those people that are top performers that are winning top dollars, because it means that the company is really scaling. So please don't be sad because you are paying top dollars to your top performers. The opposites apply. Be super happy and try to multiply the number of top performers that you have in the team. Of course, not forgetting, and we don't forget here, and we both believe in this, the importance of culture and having team players and no assholes in the process. That's not what we are promoting here.
Absolutely. The importance of a DFZ, a diva-free zone, people that actually come together to help each other out. And again, if people in more junior join the team, they look at a top performer, I want to be like that. Maybe I'm going to buy them coffee, or I'm going to invite them over for lunch, so I learn a bit more of what differentiates their approach. And I can maybe try to replicate some of that. So it's, as you said, it generates positive culture when done the right way.
Before wrapping up, there is an interesting point that came to my mind when you were talking about the Real Madrid story, which is I always listen to this about Mourinho is not paid to teach Ronaldo how to score. Ronaldo knows much more about how to score than Mourinho. But in some of these roles, sometimes we need to have different approaches of leadership. Some of the coaches have been top players in the past. Some of them have been very bad players. Others have never been players before. So in some cases, it makes sense to share our experience when we were players and teach our players to get better at that. But in other cases, it doesn't make any sense to train them because they know more than us, and that's the way we should be. We need to be much more focused on the collective coaching or the team coaching, as I like to say, ensuring that they are all connected and they are all going into the same direction, and that they have their clarity in the way that we plan to win the game. And they also understand what we will do if something doesn't work in the way that we want to work. So we already have those contingency plans if they score first instead of us, or if they are winning for 2-0 and we need to recover the match. So what is your approach about combining this kind of the ones that you know that you can teach and that you see potential, and the ones that you know they don't need me, they are better than me in terms of individual contributors?
It comes down to one question that I asked to anyone in my teams at the start of the year when we start working together, which is, what does support from me look like to you? Because some people, for them, support is knowing if I need you, you're going to be there. I'll contact you proactively. Others is you check in with me because maybe they have less tenure, they need more support. You check in with me before a big call, before a big customer call, before that C-level call to check preparation. We do a dry run together. We ensure that we have no loose ends. It's a different level of the more people get tenure and performance, the more they're going to value things like autonomy, like margin of maneuver.
Yeah.
Others, if they have less tenure and they are starting, they value spending one-to-one quality time coaching so that you almost dry run the entire situation and reproduce the environment where they're going to be so that they get there very, very well prepared. And you might even do a post-call review so that you align on things that were important. How did they see the situation? And there's one thing that I always do, which is someone comes to me asking for help. Again, I always ask, before I offer my perspective, what would you have to say? How would you go about fixing it or solving it? And I always say something. If after a while, because we all have the constraints of time, if after a while, let's say 20 minutes, the conversation has been productive, but not as productive as I feel it should. Okay, so let's do this. We close now. I'm going to help you out. Here's one thing that I ask you with one condition, and this is really, really important. The same thing, you have an upfront contract with customers or some sort of mutual project plan. With one condition, I'm going to help you out. You're going to tell me why what I did worked according to your opinion, because then you're putting people in the driver's seat of the training they just received, and you're making them account. Next time you were accountable for this, you came back to next time, you know how to do it yourself, right?
Love it. Yeah, amazing point. And let's go into the last segment of the show where we have some quick questions. That's the first time that we will do this. And thank you so much for innovating and for suggesting me to do this. Thank you, Miguel. And so, worst advice ever received?
Worst advice I ever received: if you're really great at sales, you'll be able to sell to anyone. Best salespeople I've worked with, they have a relentless focus on identifying the ICP, the ideal customer profile. And if the customer is not ready, is not at a stage of maturity where it makes sense to work with them, to work towards a successful mutual project, they don't do it. They nurture that customer for sure. They might invite them to events or webinars to get some more education. They might even put them to speak with another customer they have because they have successful customers as their ultimate level of trust and currency. And they might do that, but they definitely don't start the sales process with them because they understand the buyer journey more than the sales journey. Just because you put that it's at negotiation stage in your CRM doesn't change anything if the customer is not at a stage of, they are top of the funnel. They're curious, they're exploring. Right. Doesn't mean they are committed to evaluate, solve their concerns, and eventually buy and abandon the status quo.
Love it. What are you reading these days?
So these days I'm reading the Trillion Dollar Coach. It's a book that was recommended to me by another sales leader, and I've been enjoying particularly the importance of asking smart questions and then allowing people to get to their own conclusions. It promotes autonomy, which is something that is particularly important in a rapidly changing world. If you're the bottleneck, you're not going to go very far. Your team's not going to go very far. And I think I haven't finished the book, but so far it's been quite an exciting read just because of those reasons.
I love it, and I need to reread it again. So the best books we need to read them again because we will see them with a different lens as we move forward in life. And finally, what series are you seeing that is inspiring you?
Oh, it's a topic near and dear to my heart. Series and TV shows that I've basically fallen in love with, for me, is two. The first one, I believe we might have that in common, is Suits. I love that TV show. It's on Netflix. And again, I don't love it for the reasons that maybe most people would do, which is, related to maybe Harvey Specter and how he dominates the game, or Mike Ross and how he's gone up the ranks. I love it because of two main reasons. The importance of emotional intelligence personified by Donna, and the way she's always able to reach a conclusion and get a positive outcome to a situation. And the counterexample of Louis Litz. He knows, think about it for a second. He knows so much technically. He's so good on the hard skills, but he always had problems with people because emotionally speaking, he was never able to find common ground, to solve conflicts in a productive manner. And that just shows you, I have a bit of Louis Litt inside of me. I've been an asshole, maybe, I've been a jerk. If I can mitigate that, if I can go around that and generally try to be a better person, obviously you might be able to afford some of the trouble that Louis Litt went through. And the other TV show that I just love because it inspires me in terms of the winning mentality and the relentless focus of always improving is The Last Dance. I've played basketball. Obviously, Michael Jordan. I wish I could say we had things in common. I don't think we do, but at least I try. At least I try. But it's the more I watch, the more I'm a fan of all that winning mentality and the real hard cost of winning and him trying to improve his team and trying to improve himself. It's fascinating. Day in, day out, they would play sometimes every 2 days. And he would say, there's always a kid in the stands that watch me for the first time. And I love the way he went about it. I need to give these people my best because there's always someone in the stands who might be watching me for the first time. And he had that beginner's mindset that he was always looking to improve. It's truly inspirational.
Amazing. Miguel, we have made it. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Mike.
And to our community, thanks for being on that side. We keep bringing you the best of the best to make your life a little bit easier, scaling from 1 million to 1 billion. See you soon and keep scaling.